Hey, this is Jonathan Mickles, jonathanmickles.com, and this is like take three of an interview that I want to do with a good friend of mine who will introduce himself. We have had some of the strangest luck, as it were, in trying to make this video happen. So I'm going to switch to him and let him introduce himself. You are, sir.
My name is Darious Britt. I'm a filmmaker and a YouTuber. Under filmmaker, there's a lot of hats there, but on YouTube, I give filmmaking tips and advice. The channel's called D for Darius, and on the filmmaking side of it, I just released my first feature film called Unsound. Took me 7 years to do, and I also dropped a documentary called Making Unsound: The 7 Year Journey.
Cool.
And the feature film, just for the peeps who may not know, it's a semi-autobiographical story of how I came to take care of my mother who has severe mental illness. And the documentary is essentially the entire process, the entire 7 year process making Unsound the feature film.
Cool. So thank you very much. And instead of trying to be real professional and all that stuff that I normally would try to do in this, I mean, you and I have known each other for 4 years. We're pretty decent friends.
Yeah,
so
we go way back.
We go way back. So
Sandbox.
so we're just gonna have a conversation like we normally do, and our conversations can go all over the place. The first time we tried to do this video, it went on for about an hour. We're not gonna do that again this time. We want to keep it good for the hood, for the streets. No, but then the second time we did this video, I had the blue screen of death. And so hopefully all that technical stuff has been cleared up. So now what I really wanted to do was to really take some time and like shed some light on you. You're a brilliant brother, in my opinion. You've gone after this whole thing of creating your own film and being an independent filmmaker. You know, you did it. I mean, and I'm really proud of you for it. And I want to give some highlight to it. And a lot of my videos over time, you know, while they don't have millions and millions of views, I have seen them show up in people's blogs. I've seen them show up in, there's one video I did on lead-based paint or something like that, and it's being used by a lead-based paint school, inspection school. So these things can go anywhere, and you never know where they can show up, and just the right people can see it and do those things. You know, I think I'm gonna go right into this because this first question that pops in my mind is not necessarily in the direction I want to go, so we just gonna flow. One of the cool. So one of the things that we talked about initially was, you getting a distribution deal, with the big boys, and then this film blowing up, and you're like, no, not necessarily. Help me understand what happened. I think it was a progression there. What happened? Talk to me.
Yeah, so distribution, the film business is very ugly for starters, just like the music business, very cutthroat. And I think we're in an age where you need to create your own opportunities and you need to learn how to market yourself and to some extent work your way towards selling your own films yourself. If you can, which I mean is very possible nowadays. It just takes a little more work and a little more savvy. But the old route, I'm Tim. I just made a film. I get it into some festivals. It gets a little buzz. This distribution company, we'll just call them Tripods or Us, says, we love your film, Tim. We'll distribute it for you. Sign some paperwork. I sign all the paperwork, give them the film. They distribute it all over the world. I get absolutely nothing.
I mean, so hold on. That's the whole idea, is get money. What do you mean you get nothing? I mean,
distribution has been broken for a long time. Lots of people have gotten screwed, just like the music business. And if you got a problem with it, we'll go get a lawyer and sue us. And obviously, if I just spent everything I was worth on this film, where am I going to get money for a lawyer? So that's a worst case scenario, though. There are varying degrees of middle gray in between there. But most of the time when you talk about distribution on the indie filmmaking side, 99.9% of those filmmakers haven't really seen a dime back. Wow. They're lucky if they've seen maybe 5 to 10 up front, but most of them don't see their money back. But the good thing about nowadays is using platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and leveraging micro content and learning and understanding marketing. You know, if somebody's willing to take on the entrepreneurial spirit and go beyond just making films and get into the business side of it, the sky is the limit.
So one of the things that I'm thinking about right now that popped in my mind, and I'm not sure if this is really because I'm not in the music business that much and really don't listen to a lot of say rap, but Chance the Rapper, right? Didn't he, his first thing when it dropped, he was a YouTube or Facebook sensation when his stuff dropped, right? How, is that kind of what you're talking about? Like creating your own? Yeah.
I think you're going to see more in the next, maybe 5-10 years. You're going to see more and more and more people coming up, being very successful, completely independent, doing their own thing. No middleman. You're going to see more of that.
And I also point to Tim Ferriss, who I really enjoy and really like his trajectory in his career. 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Body, 4-Hour Chef, Tribe of Mentors, and Tools of Titans. Those are the 5 top best-selling books that he had. I think when he got to the point where he was at either 4-Hour Body or 4-Hour Chef, I think it was Barnes and Noble. I could be wrong about Barnes and Noble, but one of the major book distribution companies said, "Hey, we're gonna not take your book and put it in," and da 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 da. And Tim Ferriss kind of went the opposite route. I mean, he pre-sold so many copies of his book; it was undeniable. You could not have his book. You get what I'm saying? And
unless he just didn't want business.
Yeah. So if somebody out there is looking at either writing a book and having, some success with it, or even this stuff that we're talking about here, go read Tim Ferriss's way that he actually was able to sell his book. I think it was either the 4-Hour Chef or the 4-Hour Body. You can go to tim.blog and get all of his stuff. No, Tim is not paying me any money. I just really, like his stuff and like where he's going. So what did you use, to kind of help you get that savvy as you were talking? We're going to get to the film, but I'm liking how this flows right now. So,
I guess to put a pigtail in it, because I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, because I don't want to do what I did last time. I mean, to try to say it in as succinct as I can. I think I arrived at this space through realizing that the ways that I was taught were antiquated to the point of being almost useless.
Explain some of that. Explain what you mean by that. Some of the ways that you were taught.
The way that the things that I was taught in film school, and it's nothing against film school, but the things that I was taught were so out of date.
Okay.
They're teaching me how to make a film with a crew of 20, 30 people and a budget of $200,000, $300,000. But the average person who gets out of film school, you don't have a crew of 20 to 30 people. You don't have $200,000 to $300,000. You don't have a producer to say, "Hey, you do the LLC, you do all the business work, and you start the business, and you handle all the legal contract." You don't have any of that. Right. You got to start from scratch. You got to find your own money. Crowdfunding and all that, man, that's so played at this point. It's ridiculous.
Really?
I mean,
really?
Campaigns are everywhere unless you're inventing something new.
Yeah.
It's really hard to make money for a creative endeavor, especially if you have no track record.
So since creating something new, and again, I'm not getting paid for any of this, but this little thing right here just came in today. I got the Pact One, and it's I'm a minimalist, but that's my new thing. I think you know that. And so they created this new bag, right? This new travel bag, so you can kind of never have to take a suitcase. And the idea is that you travel light. You can take this bag and put it up under the seat. You don't have to pay any money to take all your luggage with you. It's a whole thing, but they created something new, and they went to Indiegogo.
Those do well, though. Those innovative things, those do really well with crowdfund campaigns.
Yeah, but Malcolm Fontier had created this stuff, one of these things before, and he was quite well known for the work that he did. And then getting with the Minimalists, the two guys who make up the Minimalists, it was just like a home run thing. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Those things do extremely well on crowdfunding campaigns, though, because it's an immediate benefit, right? It's like, it's an immediate benefit. But when you're talking like being a musician or a filmmaker, people usually don't want to give you money unless you have some kind of, like friends and family are different, right? They're gonna, but when you're talking about shooting a film or mixing, right, like that takes a lot of money. And to go out and ask random people, hey, everybody, why don't you give me $20,000 or $100,000? Why? Because I have this great idea. Yeah, it doesn't really tend to work well. So now, if you're a Spike Lee or something and you've got a track record and you have fans, then it's a lot easier to raise money because you have fans, you have a crowd to turn to.
Right.
Outside of that, it's not really a good go. So basically, you're reduced to square one, and you need to learn how to, if you want to be in business anyway, you need to learn how to make a product, in this case a film, for really, really cheap. So that way you can work out a formula, like get better at actually making films and get in the game, because you can't get in the game if you have nothing.
So it wasn't for you, your trajectory, I'm out of film school, now I'm going to make this movie. You actually got in the game a lot earlier, right? So talk a little bit about how you got in the game and, before you got out of film school. Go for it.
Yeah, so I didn't actually, quote unquote, get into the game until I got on YouTube. I did the film festival circuit with a short film, and then I started shooting the feature film, and I finished shooting the feature film. And then I decided to get onto YouTube before I started touring that feature film on the festival circuit. And I think I learned two lessons. One is feature films are great, but they're an inaccessible product to make out of the gate. Inaccessible meaning it takes a lot of resources to pull that off.
Got it.
If you have those resources, great, but most people don't. I got lucky. I did a lot of moving and shaking, but in some ways I did get lucky as well, having the right people around me, seeking the right knowledge, but I don't advise everybody do that out of the gate. There's smarter ways to go about doing it nowadays.
But you did a short as your capstone project in film school, right? So, yeah. And that was called The Seafood Tester. You can go check that out. It's on YouTube if you go and Google it. And then before that, I remember, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell it, you said a couple of years or whatever into film school, you started jumping on sets so that you can learn. I mean, that's what I mean by getting in a game. I mean, elaborate a little bit on that. What do you mean?
Well, see, I got on sets to learn, but I guess when I mean get in the game, I mean, if you're a businessman or you're trying to start a business, you got to have a product. You can't start to refine your business and work your business model out and scale until you have a product, until you have something you're selling, and then you work up from there. So that's what I mean about getting the game. But in the sense that you're talking about getting started, when I was in film school, I did get on some sets. I got on a lot of my fellow alumni, or at the time they were just soon to be classmates or people ahead of me. I got on their sets and I learned the ropes and cut my teeth doing that, which I do recommend for everybody. It's like you're going to learn way more getting on film sets. It's easy to do. Go to the nearest film school. You don't even have to be attending the school, really. Just go there and be like, hey, I'm trying to get on film sets. I'll work. I'll carry food. I'll hold the boom. I'll do whatever. I just want to help. Not many people actually do that. So if you go out and you're like, hey, I got time to burn, they'll take you. They'll take you and they'll use you. So
right. But if you're just trying to get, your feet wet and figure out which direction you really want to go in, those kind of opportunities are golden. So
yeah, because you can find out, you might get on there and you might hate it. It's a good time to figure that out for free before you're actually committed than, signing up for classes and a whole degree program just to find out it's not really for you.
Got it. Well, let's shift to the premise of Unsound and what it is. So how did Unsound come to be?
So I've been dealing with mental illness for most of my life with my mom. I don't have it, but I've been a caretaker of someone who does. Runs in my family. And I was dealing with it all throughout film school, actually, as well. So when I wanted to make a feature film, I wanted to make something close to home, something that I knew intimately well, and I wanted to make something that meant something to people. I didn't just want to go make a shoot 'em up or something. And it was kind of the story that I had to tell. So I started writing Unsound while I was in film school, and 7 years later, I finally finished it. I mean, I started writing it in film school. That was about a year and a half. I started shooting it. That was another year of shooting. Wow. Post was sometime. The film festival circuit, that was a year and some change. So it was a long process. But that's kind of the inception of it. You know, it's semi-autobiographical, I guess, the way I've explained it. You know, obviously it's something I actually experienced. And yeah, that's kind of the genesis of it.
Got it. So then you mentioned that it was a 7-year process, semi-autobiographical. There's a lot of questions I guess I have for you here, and I'll kind of rattle them off, and then you pick up wherever. You know, you said that your mom has mental illness, and so this short, Seafood Tester, as I understand, was about that, and then you made that short into a feature-length film, correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, I had the feature script done first, and then I had to make a thesis film to graduate. You know, it's like you're getting ready to, you know, graduate. You got to make a big, you know, film thing, right? And it's a short film, can't be no more than 10 minutes long. So I decided to take a piece of that feature and make a short film out of that.
Okay.
And when we got to shooting the feature film, I already had a little piece shot, and then we just shot the rest of it, worked it in, and then finished the film.
And I think I asked you this question before on one of our other takes of trying to do this, but, you know, being an African American and your mom having mental illness, I mean, how did she get around to saying, yeah, I'll do this? I mean, because that's, you know, pretty, you know.
Personal.
Yeah, very much so. And then even your experience in that. I mean, how did you come to that? I mean.
Yeah, she wasn't excited at first. Very resistant to the idea. She thought I was going to demonize her. But I think I was fairly confident that if I just pressed on and continued to make the film that I believe I wanted to make, that needed to be made, you know, and it's a very human story. There's no saints. Like, I'm not demonizing her. There's some aspects about the caretaker that are not I feel like Barack Obama now, like thinking, you know, you think while you're talking over like,
yeah. Yeah, I got you.
But there's aspects of it. I think that I think this is the way to put it. A situation like this brings the monster out of everybody.
Yeah.
Whether you're dealing with it or whether you're not, it brings the monster out of everybody. Right. And I think when she saw how authentic and real, true to life I was trying to be with this story, how honest I was trying to be with the story, she was all on board then. And she saw it as an opportunity to connect with others who may be going through the same thing.
So is she in the film, or is there just an actor who plays her in this film?
There's an actress who plays her.
Okay, cool. And so your mom...
I'm in it, but for her, there was an actress who played, because she definitely... you know, just throughout the years and the medications and all that, she was nowhere near able to take on any kind of film role. Not to mention, that's a whole, like, skill set into itself. That's like, you know, when you're talking about acting, people have studied their entire lives to do that. So,
Got it.
So, yeah, she's not in it.
Got it.
She does have a cameo in it, though. I gave her a cameo.
Ah, cool. So cameo, look for moms in there. So last thing on this part, you know, being an African American, you know, and then being a caretaker for someone who has mental illness. I mean, what did you learn? What kind of support did you get? I mean, it's like for you, you're like the fish because you're saying what water? Because you've always been in this, right? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think, I guess what I learned that I think, for me, I feel is most important to share with others who may be going through something like this is it's important to know you're not alone. For a while, I felt like I was.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I realized that I wasn't, and there were a lot of other people going through it, not just as a caretaker, but people obviously who deal with depression or, you know, any number of battles. It wasn't until I fully embraced the concept that I'm not alone that I was able to develop the coping mechanisms to handle it. Because you have to stop looking at yourself as a victim. Until you stop looking at yourself as a victim and realize you have more power than you're giving yourself, and you can do something about it.
Got it.
And you can begin to take steps to actually do something about it, whether that's seeking counseling. In my case, it was working with caseworkers on a number of levels. And they also helped to give me that context about the situation, because all I see is my life,
Right.
but they see hundreds of cases a day, you know, so they were able to kind of, I mean, they weren't giving me specifics about other people's cases, but they were giving me perspective, you know, hey, this is what you can expect,
Right.
You know, so on and so forth. So I think that helped me out a lot, getting perspective and getting coping mechanisms. I believe that helped my mother because I was on board and I was more equipped to handle it. Then I was able to reach her in a way that she had never been reached before. And I think that the same would apply to anybody else out there. It's like you have to own the problem first. You can't keep running from it. You can't victimize yourself to it. You have to own it first before you can do anything about it. You may not be able to fix it. I mean, you can't, like, you know, obviously you can't wish any of this away. There's no pill you can take to make it all go away. But you can improve your quality of life substantially if you own every aspect of it, and take it from there. So.
All right, couple, I'm about to wrap up. We're about 21 minutes in, almost 22 minutes. So how can people actually get to Unsound? Do they have to pay for it? Is it on Netflix? Where is it?
Yeah, so Unsound is on YouTube. There is no paywall. If you want to see it, you can go to YouTube and type in Unsound. It'll be like the first one that pops up, maybe the first two, along with the documentary that'll pop up right up underneath it. And yeah.
There's a documentary.
It's on my channel. So you can either type in my name, Darious Britt, or D for Darius, and Unsound will probably pop up, or you can just type in Unsound and it'll pop up.
You mentioned a documentary and the film, so there's two different things, right? Talk to me about talk to me about the documentary.
The documentary is a cradle to grave. It's a cradle to the grave journey of the process of me making Unsound. So you get to see essentially when I was in film school, when I started writing Unsound, the entire process writing it, the entire process shooting it, the obstacles we encountered, everything down to marketing and the film festival circuit, all the way up to when I released the film about a month ago. So yeah, that documentary is like, it's literally kind of like 7 years of my life making this film condensed into an hour and like 15 minutes.
Wow.
So if anybody out there is thinking about doing filmmaking and they don't quite have a grasp or a clear idea of what they can expect getting into this business, if they were to watch that, they get a pretty clear idea.
Real clear.
Like, whoa, okay.
Because it was a major investment for you, and of not just money but time. I mean, I remember when we started talking 4 years ago. You know, the amount of time that you would be taking learning new stuff, the amount of time you'd be taking to do, you know, renderings and, hey, I'm working on this, I'm working on that, and, you know, just takes amazing amount of time. I want to kind of end on a high note because out of this, two things, the last two questions. The first question is, you mentioned that you were on a film circuit. Talk to me about that. How did Unsound do on the film festival? Yeah.
We screened at over 20 international film festivals and we won 8 awards. We had a really good run.
Wow.
And the reception of it's doing really well right now too, actually. I think, you know, to kind of piggyback on ending it on a positive note, if anybody is watching this who is into filmmaking, or maybe not even filmmaking, if it's music or whatever, I would say the thing I learned, I think the most important lesson I learned out of all this is and this may sound counterintuitive, but don't try to be a successful person. Strive to be a valuable person.
Yeah, that's good.
Because there's a difference. There's a difference between chasing success and trying to better yourself. And usually, the people who are more about trying to become more knowledgeable and be better at what they're doing, and those people, success attracts to you when you're a valuable person, as opposed to just chasing success. There's a lot more power in realizing that, if I invest in myself and learn as much as I can, opportunities come from that. You don't necessarily need to go chasing it.
Got it. And there's more that I can say about that, but we're gonna cut it off there because we got into a whole big old platform on that one.
We're not doing it again.
We're not doing it again. We're not doing it again.
Oh man, I see it. I'm sidestepping.
I got you. But the last thing is, I wanted to talk about just some of the other lessons you learned. I mean, you started talking about that. Are there any other success lessons that you've learned or things that you've learned in going through this process that you want to share?
Oh yeah, they kind of piggyback into searching and seeking self-value instead of success and validation. Take it slow, be patient, and take little bits at a time. If you're getting into filmmaking, don't go out and try to shoot a feature right away. Shoot a short film. If you've never shot a short film, shoot a couple scenes right away. Pace yourself. You'll get a lot more done, and you'll learn a lot more if you actually pace yourself and break it up into little bits.
So last two things, I know I keep saying the last things, but you actually are consulting now, right?
Oh yeah.
Talk a little bit about your consulting business.
That was you. So I was thinking about doing consulting years ago, and I had gotten into talks with you, and you kind of helped shed some light on how to set up the website and just the structure of it. But I got into consulting because I thought it was a good way to give back. And also, in the position that I'm in, time is not all. Frankly, I don't have a lot of time. So consulting was a way where I could kind of knock out two birds with one stone. It's like I can get value for my time and all that I've spent years learning, but I can personally one-on-one give that value back.
How do they get in contact with you? How do people get in contact with you?
On my website, dfordarious.com, you can schedule a session there. There's a consulting tab, and there's a whole portal, and it pretty much walks you all the way through the process, setting up times and payment and all that. So dfordarious.com/consulting.
There you go. And so if you just want to send him an email, you just go to the website as well, send him an email, and Darious has been very gracious about sharing his information and just his insights. But please don't go there asking him to divulge all of the years that he's been working on everything without setting up some sort of consulting with him. Want to do that. But, even as mental health professionals, I think you wanted to encourage them to go look at Unsound and screen it if possible, and, reach out to Darious if that's something that you want him to maybe come to your town and show the film. I still have not seen the film, but I am waiting to get some popcorn and jump on the couch and really just turn on YouTube and watch it. Cause I'm interested in seeing what's really there. I did see Seafood Tester a couple years back, and that was pretty much eye opening and impactful and kind of a lot of space to kind of think about what in the world was happening here. But I'm sure that the full feature length film is going to be quite interesting as well. So, are there any other parting words that you have for the folks out there who are going to be watching this?
Oh yeah, I would say for the anyone in the mental health community who sees the film and it resonates with them, I would say share like anybody you think this would resonate with, or someone who's going through it that you think would benefit from this shared experience. That's why it's online. Share away, man. That's the beautiful thing about it, is that it's so immediate. Anybody can get to it at any time.
You ain't got to bootleg this. You ain't got to bootleg it. You ain't got
to bootleg it, man. And I thought it was important for the community too, which is another reason why I decided not to do a paywall with it. Is that you reach a point where you realize, fortunately anyway, I mean, maybe it doesn't happen with everybody, but for me, I felt like I reached a point where it was never about money to begin with, but once you spend but so much money, you're charging credit card, like literally you're dumping everything you're worth into a film, you start to think about money. You're like, okay, I got how many credit cards? Man, I gotta pay this off some kind of way, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then, you keep going down the rabbit hole in the process and the journey of making the film. And I reached a point where I came out the other end where I realized, okay, I may make my money back with this, I may not. But to me, what was more important is that this really gets out there and reaches the people that need to see it. Because, like I said before, maybe it was one of our other sessions, but there honestly aren't many movies that dig into what it's actually like to deal with mental illness as a caretaker or as a person dealing with it. I mean, when I was going through it, I looked for movies, or documentaries or something, and there were not that many. And a number of them I felt were not accurate. So that was part of the reason that brought me out the other end, is that, this is kind of bigger than me at this point. Like, right. This really needs to get out there for other people who are dealing with this. So, yes, if you think somebody's going through this and it resonates with them, share away. Let them know about it. And yeah.
Gotcha. Well, look, man, we're at 31 minutes and 9 seconds. So thanks, everybody, for taking the time to watch this. Again, if you want to reach out to Darious, he's giving you a couple ways. This is Jonathan Mickles from JonathanMickles.com, signing off until the next time that we have an interview with someone. Have a great one. Thanks, Darious.
Thank you, brother.